My name is Aggrey Mokaya. I'm 31 years old. I am a university lecturer and the founder of Change Hub Innovation Center. But I'm trying to be, if not the first, but among the first people to get a higher doctorate in public health, Doctor of Science. But that will happen like in probably the next 15 years. So I am a lecturer of environmental health, commonly referred to as public health. Well, I can basically teach all the courses in there, but my most favorite are biostatistics, research methodology, and epidemiology. So basically this is just the study of the distribution of disease and the kind of thing. And it's not about that I'm happy that people are getting disease, but we're actually trying to, one, not only study what disease is there, but also trying to find what is linked to this disease. Specifically for me, I'm interested in mental health. And actually what made me go into this is, as my experience as a university lecturer, you come into contact with a lot of young people and they're struggling a lot with so many things, and the society we come from is really closed and there's a lot of stigma. Nobody wants to talk about, I'm depressed. Like personally for me, I have been depressed. But it's not something people like to say. They'll be like, oh my God, he's been depressed. And it's like it's a big thing, there's so much stigma, no one wants to talk about it. And these are the things that are actually plaguing our society right now. Because if you look at some WHO estimates, put it at about 40% of Kenyans, not talking about Africans, but Kenyans are depressed. We get to a point where we look at it like, there's some, mild depression. People look at it like it's okay, I'm used to it. What's wrong? I'm stressed. And it's okay, that's part of life. But it's not a part of life. That is a sign of somebody not coping. And that tends to, increase over time. And then, because we are not talking about it, nobody is supporting anyone. And it degenerates from there. From the studies I've done, both for my PhD and even before, I did a study with a colleague about 2 years ago among university students. And from that study, we found that suicidal behavior among university students within that setting was linked to a history of bullying, somebody who's ever been bullied in high school or even before. And something else it was linked to was those who identify themselves as either bisexual or gay or lesbian are more likely to exhibit those suicidal tendencies. And of course, from a wider social context in our country, these are things that people don't want to talk about. They're there. And there's a lot of stigma around that. And so because of that, people lack the normal support systems that somebody would have. So somebody is isolated. They're isolated emotionally. They become isolated socially. Then they basically lose hope, and it looks like it's the only way out. So for me, at least from my experience, and also interacting with some of the students, when you talk to them, you'll find a lot of what people thought were problems that are common to Western countries are coming up now. If you're talking about physical abuse in the home, if you're talking about even divorce, some of the other things would even be like if you have kids who come from families where, the parents are cheating on each other and the kids know. So that's something that affects them, because you talk to students and, from the outside they look like they're okay. The family looks good from the outside, but when they open their mouths and they start talking, you think you have problems, but so many young people are dealing with a lot of heavy stuff, and they have really few outlets where they can actually, talk about this and get to be able to cope with that. Looking at it from my own personal perspective, so of course, as you can see, I am, a large guy. Let me put it that way. And growing up, when I was much younger, it was not a problem. You come from an African home, people want to feed you. If you're eating well, it's a good thing because, you're growing, you're developing. Everybody's happy, like, my baby really eats well. But, going into my teenage years, and I had a lot of struggle with my self-image. You get into a point to accept myself, or even having that thinking that, nobody could ever love me. So actually, even like throughout high school, you like girls, but you don't talk to them because the back of your mind, it's like, no one could ever like me, so why bother, And so for me, it was really hard. I had an outlet, I threw myself into my books, So I read a lot. My high school library, I think I read almost all the books, all sorts of things you could think of, history of Europe, whatever. I read all those things because that's how I went through high school. Because I was not so well socially adjusted because of those issues with my weight and just the image of myself. So especially, and things came to a head like after high school, and you're home and there are all these nice girls, you like them. I remember the first girl I tried to talk to told me, not even if you're the last man on earth. And that broke me at some level. I know. So I mean, it took me, I think, up to somewhere my mid-20s to get to a point where I know that it's okay to be me. And I know I'm handsome. No one needs to tell me that. Like, it's a fact, So, I mean, so that's where I try to identify with, when I look at young people, when I talk to them, I see, like, I almost see me in them. Or I see they're like me. And I feel like, I can talk to them and tell them, like, it actually gets better. And it gets to a point where, at least in my experience, I've come to realize, especially in Nairobi, as a guy, it doesn't matter how you look like. It really doesn't. For me, I guess I was a bit lucky coming from my family. I have 3 sisters, no brother. So I guess it maybe if you know how to talk to women, it doesn't really matter. Change Hub is an enterprise set up around delivering technology education to communities and populations that are ordinarily not thought about when you think about tech. So right now we are still running our pilot project at Langata Women's Prison. We've been there for 2.5 years. We are doing training around web design, programming, 3D printing. And it's basically about giving them a skill that they can, there's a lot of other training they get at the prison, whether it's tailoring, baking, and so on. So we are trying to give them a skill that they can combine with what they already have to leverage the tech-based economy that we have right now. Like one of the inmates who went through the program and got released is currently running like a bakery business, but the website she created on her own. Even the website for the organization Change Hub was built by the inmates themselves. So right now we are trying to expand that program to go to the juvenile prison and the male prison. But we also have the phase 2 of the project, which is now bringing that education to at-risk girls, those who've been rescued from early marriage and FGM. So we have 2 potential sites, one in Narok, one in Kiserian. Because you go on the ground and you talk to these girls and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'll tell you 3 things. I want to be a driver, a game warden, or a teacher. Those are the 3 things they see. So for me, I look at it as, somebody like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, this guy had some exposure. They had some enablers that allowed them to innovate. And I think any African child, boy or girl, has the same potential. So it's not a matter of trying to make everyone into a programmer. But if you create a space for them where they're able to learn, they're able to be exposed to a whole world that is out there, then we're also not letting go of potential resources that actually could, spell a better future for our country. My first successful dating experience, well, this was a girl at my church, and I on the weekends, I used to, not anymore, but I used to teach in a club for kids aged 10 to 14, and she was also a counselor in the club, and so I liked her, and I mean, we would meet at church, we would talk. I found her interesting, everything. So, you know, I decided to go about it in a bit of an unorthodox way. So I gave her my number, because I insisted, you know, I always kept on telling her, you know, you don't have my number, you don't have my number. And I kept on pestering her to get my number, like for, I think it took like 2-3 months. So finally she took my number. She wanted to give me hers. I said, no, I don't want your number. You just have mine. So for the next 2 months after that, I used to pester her, how comes you never use my number? How comes you never use my number? You know, all the time. So finally one day she's like, I've had it. She texted me. Yeah, I remember, because we, in a space of 24 hours, we exchanged like almost 1,000 SMSs. Yeah, I'm those guys. I am a very active communicator. I call you 3 times a day, whatever it is. Yeah, well, it was like 3 good months and then 4 bad months, and then it died. But yeah, it was good while it lasted. Because of my faith, I can only date people from my church. I'm an Adventist, so yeah, which eliminates like maybe 95% of girls in Nairobi. And then now, you know, after you eliminate all that, they're coming from, you know, and you'll find, you see, like in my church, that church mostly has kisses and duos, and kisses are like related to everyone. So like you find a girl, you like her, then you find you're in the same clan, then you know. Yeah, actually a friend of mine was telling me, it's like I have like some serious radar for, you know, tracking down all my long lost cousins, because you meet someone you like, yeah, they're your cousin. So yeah, that sucks a bit. Yeah, but at the moment, no, I'm not dating. I'm not happy with the situation, but I am taking steps. Let me say, I am taking steps to rectify the situation. What drives me is I want to be the best. I know it sounds cliche, but I want to be the best in whatever it is that I'm doing. And not just for my own gratification, but, you know, have an impact, leave a legacy, you know. I am a deacon at my church, so yes. Anyway, so I remember when we had the ordination, the pastor who prayed said that it's his hope that on the day when we die, those of us who are being ordained that day, that it will be the widows or the orphans or people in the community that we helped. Those are the people who are gonna come to bury us, you know. So for me, I feel like, you know, I don't want to just have an ordinary life, because anyone can go to school, get a job, get a family, you know, raise that family and then die. And then, you know, like 99.9% of the people in the world do that. But I want to, you know, leave something behind, something that people can remember me by, so that my being here on this planet was just not in vain. And you know, if I really think about it deeply, you know, I also think maybe it stems from, you know, a lot of the time growing up, I felt as though, you know, people would overlook me. And of course, you know, it's right now, you know, when you're older, you understand it, because it's kids being kids. And of course, even for logistical reasons, you know, like you're playing a soccer game, you're 18 of you or 20 of you, and they want to pick people. So everybody gets picked except me. I do get to play, but you know, when you're the last person, you haven't been picked. Everybody else got picked, then you remained, and you're just there to balance out numbers. So that pushed me a lot into my books. So that first girlfriend, the one who, it was 3 nice months and 4 very crazy months. I remember that time I was working at a job. I'd worked for 2 years. I was earning like 17,000 a month. Still living at home. And she was in university, but when she finished, she got like a big job. You know, people do actually good money. So like, I think her first job, she was earning like 4 times what I was earning. And then she got another job within 2 weeks. So we went out, she met me, and she basically told me that she thinks I'm in a comfort zone, that I'm a man with no ambition, I'm not gonna make it in life. And yeah, I can say that seriously lit a fire under me, and that fire is burning. Yeah, so I always credit her for that. It was a good thing what she did.